dealing with the human security. At the outset, I must say that the concept of human security is very much important. Caste-ridden states in caste-ridden states, different securities for individuals as they need to counter threats in society. It was and the need for protecting the people's lives. Subsequent discussions on human rights led to the United Nations General Assembly to adopt the Universal Declaration on Human Rights that called for safeguarding the rights of the people and protecting them in various ways to ensure a good life for the people. The declaration adopted on 10th December 1948 is landmark and states at the end of its preamble that the United Nations General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all people and all nations to end that every individual and every organ of society keeping this declaration constantly in mind shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedom and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the people of territories under their jurisdiction. During 1990s, during 1990s, a good thing happened, especially as the Cold War ended. It became clear that the traditional concept of security was not enough to accommodate human welfare, especially the emancipation of poor, marginalized sections, and disadvantaged groups. It was realized that human rights approach should be reinforced with development measures and security of the people across the globe. It was clearly understood that people-centered security or human security is essential for national, regional, and global stability. What was needed was a multidimensional concept of human security that covered human development, international relations, strategic studies, and human rights. In this context, the UNDP's 1994 Human Development Report was a milestone which highlighted the need for human security to fight global insecurities, hunting people, especially the poor, marginalized, and disadvantaged. The objectives, dear learners, the objectives of human security is to safeguard the vital core of all human lives from critical, pervasive threats in a way consistent with long-term human fulfillment. It maintains the joint focus on both poverty and violence, maintains its people-centered nature, maintains multi-dimensionality, focuses on cultural pervasive threats, focuses on the cultural threats to the vital core of people's lives and proposes that the objective of human security be specified and translated into operational policies and projects by principal procedures. There is an important name, Mehboob Haq, in 99, in a important work on human development, gives an outline to human security. He points out that while in the classical economy, the preoccupation was with all society, not just with economy. After Second World War, the focus was on economic growth. Resultantly, there was high growth, but not improved lives. On the contrary, the structural adjustment programs actually adversely affected the poor and other disadvantaged sections of the society. Dear learners, I must say that Amartya Sen was awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics in the year 1998. Please note it in your notebook, and in the tournament exam, you can write down that Amartya Sen got a Nobel Prize for Economics in 1998 for his contribution to welfare economics. He opines that welfare economics should pay attention to the issues concerning the development of capabilities of human beings. He has studied about food and famine and has highlighted the importance of food security as an important part of human security. He has pointed out that what a person can enjoy in terms of good and services at his command is his entitlement, which mainly depends on how much he is endowed with. Poor have very little endowment in the sense. And dear learners, we must know Mahatma Gandhi did not use the word human security, perhaps because that word and the concept of security was not prevalent, and the problem of poverty, inequalities was dealt with as economic problem only, but not as security issues. Issue of territories and violence many times were dealt with as issues of internal security. But Mahatma views on society, politics, and economy clearly indicates that he would have welcomed the concept with open hands and sincerity. Economic security. Dear learners, it refers to the right to basic minimum income and productive work. You just see, presently about one-fourth of world population is economically insecure. Economic insecurities prevail not only in developing countries but also developed and advanced economies. Absence of economic insecurity can lead to political tensions and violence affecting law and order. In India, the government's aim in passing legislation of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme was to ensure some economic or income security to the rural poor. Dear learners, the food security. The food security refers to access to basic food, both physical and economic access to all people all the time. Food security is a major problem in developing countries. The problem, ah, the problem is not only the overall availability, but also its physical distribution and a lack of purchasing power with the poor masses. This problem is prevalent both at the national and global level. Attempts by the states at national and international levels are met with limited success. The problem can be solved by ensuring access to productive assets, remunerative work, and assured minimum income. Food security here overlaps with economic security. In large countries like India, this attempt involves mobilization of vast funds, which is a difficult one. And this food security is very much essential for a country like India because here the country is very vast. It is from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and many states. And हाँ ନା ନା ଏଟା ବାହାର ପିନ୍ଧିଦେବି ତ ଗୋଟା ଇଏ ଚାଲିଛି ତ ସେ ପିଲା ଗୋଟେ କୋଶ୍ଚିନ୍ ପଚାରୁଛି କହୁଛି ଇଣ୍ଟରାକ୍ସନ ଗୋଟେ କରୁଛି ତ so this food security is very important as I said for a country like India with adverse conditions and you see what are the problems in a state like Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir is different from the prevailing conditions which are there in, say, Tamil Nadu or Karnataka. So, dear learners, adequate attention should be given to all the people which will benefit them in their work ethics. Now, I must tell you something about the health security. It refers to right to minimum protection from dangerous diseases and unhealthy lifestyles. The general cause for sickness and death are infectious diseases and unhealthy lifestyle. The general causes for sickness and death are infectious disease and unhealthy lifestyle. In a developing countries, there are
In many developing countries, there are also diseases like the TB. Many of the diseases are chronic, arising from malnutrition, lack of immunity. The Global Hunger Index, in short, the GHI 2010, has brought out the extremely poor health of children in India. The poor children of India. One thing I must tell you, dear learners, that there is a concept of haves and have-nots. Sometimes the rich people they look down upon the poor children. But catering to the human value, we must all respect the individual dignity. This is my opinion that the individual dignity has to be maintained. The underweight children of less than 5 years in India constitute 42% of such children in the world. Children need special protection under health security. Similarly, people living in rural areas in countries like India also needed health security. Environmental security. The security includes protection and protecting people from chronic ravages of nature and bad effects of abuse of nature like pollution, degradation of nature and others. Dear learners, the personal security, people are also to be protected from physical violence from stronger people and group including the state. It also includes protection from domestic violence and criminals. Basic protection in terms of law and order and free movement are necessary. Community security, protection from disorders arising from loss of traditional relationship and human values is necessary. Minorities, indigenous people and other weaker communities need to be protected. The United Nations declared the year 1993 as the year of indigenous people to draw attention of the society to the pitiable condition of about 300 million aboriginals in about 70 countries who became victims of sectarian violence. Political security. People must be enabled to enjoy basic and fundamental human rights necessary for a decent living. Amnesty International has been periodically drawing the attention towards political violence, inhuman torture, ill treatment, exploitation, and disappearance of people. During situations of political unrest, there can also be state violence to prevent spread of ideas and information that may not be liked by the state or may be a threat to some groups. Dear learners, The human development, human rights, and human security constitute the ingredients that can make humanity contented and secure. Human development creates entitlements and capabilities in people to lead a good life. Human rights create support for people and enables them to get access to entitlements and capabilities. Human securities create a right to people for basic entitlement for survival and a basic minimum standard of living. If people are appropriately empowered, these rights, entitlements, and capabilities can be well realized, benefiting the society, especially the poor, marginalized, disadvantaged, and exploited. It is therefore necessary to examine these concepts and the interdependence among them so that people and program for human upliftment and security can be created. Dear learners, one should also know that the human rights have been evolving historically over the last 300 years. Some important milestones in the development include the Habeas Corpus Act of 1679, the 1689 Bill of Rights, codified rule of law, the 1776 U.S. Declaration of Independence offered right to life, and most important, the 1789 French Revolution Declaration. Dear learners, in your term and exam, if you give these important dates, I'm sure you'll come out with flying colors and do well in your exam. 1789, the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizens covered extended sovereignty, government. Once you highlight them, I'm sure you will do justice and because the human rights, it highlighted the right to vote, individual liberty, and judicial guarantees. The government general will the government general will of the people, equality before the law, accountability, right to register, transparency, and right to property, security, freedom of conscience, and of opinion. Similarly, in 1920, the League of Nations enforced 1920, the League of Nations enforced its mission as one to create cooperation between nations and guarantees peace and security. But the concept of human rights as a universal declaration came after the horrific experience of the fascist killings during the Second World War. Human rights principles were written in the United Nations Charter. Later in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly, which adopted a combination of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. In 1976, with the adoption and entry into force of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Civil Rights, and of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICPR, the Universal Declaration of 1948 was strengthened. After this, there were several notifications covering security, cooperation against torture, against racial discrimination, right to intervention by the UN rights to the minorities, elimination of discrimination against women and rights of the child. The UN General Assembly adopted the important declaration on the right to development in 1986, which includes the right of food, education, and health. Most significant, declaration after 1948 declaration was the Vienna Declaration and programs of action adopted in 1993 by the World Conference of Human Rights, upholding human rights, stating that human rights and fundamental freedom are birthrights of all human beings. Their protection and promotion is the first responsibility of the government. Dear learners, the human rights occupy a very important position internationally, globally. Almost all countries respect human rights and have incorporated human rights in their domestic legislation. However, at the level of actual observation and practice, there have been several instances of violation of human rights. The Amnesty International bring out every year a large number of cases of human rights violation. There are also organizations like Human Rights Watch and which monitor the field of human rights and disseminate the information. Human rights in India after independence in 1947, India has been a supporter of the human rights movement. The fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution assure the right to equality, freedom against exploitation, freedom to religion, cultural and educational rights, and rights to constitutional remedies. There are several principles in the directive principles of state policy that offer guidelines to the government on policies to help the poor, women, marginalized sections, and the disadvantaged in India. One should take all care to safeguard the interest of the marginalized and the poor. The Human Development Report (SDR) 1994 speaks of sustainable human development, which means that the goal for development should be the betterment of human beings. This implies that growth should come with equity and sustainability. Human security is also related to the peace building processes. Dear learners, millions of people have been killed by the wars and conflicts. I must tell you, the First World War, 1914 to 1918, and the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, have brought havoc owing to the conflict. Besides the loss of human life and the property, the misery, displacement to millions, setback development, and destroy creativity, culture, and ideas. You see, the recent war between Russia, Ukraine, Arab countries, and Israel, you see, there is no development. Peace is hampered, only conflict. Today war, tomorrow war, continue to be war. The UNO and other bodies are telling, have peace. Sometimes they listen and they forget. Security is at loss. There is the arms race. This arms race is among the countries. One country is piling the arms and thinking that that the other country will not do anything. But if one country is piling the ammunition, The other country also is observing and to do away with. You see, in India and Pakistan, Operation Sindhu, when they can do damage, certainly we have to retaliate. There is no use sitting idle and trying for peace. But I must say that peace has to be maintained and there should be a call to the end of war. Mahatma Gandhi repeatedly said that there should be non-violent means, just as peace does not mean an absence of war, but means peace with just and dignity. Similarly, the term non-violence to be understood not just as absence of physical injury, but as an active force of love towards all creatures, including humans, animals, and plants. Human security is an emerging paradigm for understanding global vulnerabilities, whose proponents challenge the traditional notion of national security. Human security holds that a people-centered view of security is necessary for national, regional, and global stability. Dear learners, the concept of human security emerged in the post-Cold War period when a peace divided was expected, but the number of intrastate conflicts increased, even though interstate conflicts declined. With this, a multidisciplinary understanding of security involving different security threats evolved. The United Nations Development Programme 1994 Human Development Report is considered a milestone publication in the field of human security. The report laid emphasis on freedom from want, freedom from fear for all. These freedoms are considered as the best path to tackle the problem of global insecurity. Dear learners, the freedom from fear and the freedom from want and beyond. The UNDP seven categories of threats adequate global attention and resources. The human security agenda have led to the emergence of two major schools of thought on how best to practice human security, freedom from fear, freedom from want, while the UNDP 1994 report, while the UNDP 1994 report originally argued that human security requires attention to both freedom from fear and freedom from want. Divisions have gradually emerged over the people proper scope of that protection. It seeks to limit the practice of human security to protecting the individuals from violent conflicts while recognizing that these violent threats are strongly associated with poverty, lack of state capacity, and create other forms of inequalities. This approach argues that limiting the focus to violence is a realistic and manageable approach towards human security. Emergency assistance, conflict prevention, and resolution, peace building are the main concerns of this approach. Dear learners, freedom from want advocates a holistic approach in achieving human security and argues that the threat agenda should be broadened to include hunger, diseases, and natural disasters because they are inseparable concepts in addressing the root of human insecurity. And they kill far more people than war, genocide, and terrorism combined, different from freedom from fear. It expands the focus beyond violence. Dear learners, Franklin Roosevelt, in his famous Four Freedom speech of 1941, in which freedom from want is characterized as the third and freedom from fear is the fourth such fundamental universal freedom. The government of Japan, dear learners, considers freedom from fear and freedom from want to be equal in developing Japan's foreign policy. Moreover, the UNDP 1994 called for the world's attention to both these agendas. Another stalwart, Carolina Thomas, regards human security as describing a condition of existence which entails basic material needs, human dignity, including meaningful participation in the life of the community and an active and substantive notions of democracy from the local to the global. Roland Paris argued that many ways to define human security. I repeat, the Roland Paris argued that Many ways to define human security are related with certain set of value and lose the neutral position. So he suggests to take human security as a category of research. Sabina Alkayar, very significantly, is different with those approaches which seek to narrow down and specify the objectives of human security. Sabina Alkayar pushes the idea a step further as to safeguard the vital core of all human lives from critical pervasive threats without impeding long-term human fulfillment. In a concept as such, he suggests the vital core cover minimal or basic or fundamental set of functions related to survival, livelihood and dignity, and all institutions should at least and necessarily protect the core from the intervention. Dear learners, there is also a Canadian approach which urges at a minimum human security requires that basic needs are met, but it also acknowledges that sustained economic development, human rights, and fundamental freedom, the rule of law, good governance, sustainable development, and social equity are as important to global peace as arms control and disarmament. It recognizes the link between environmental degradation, population growth, ethnic conflicts, and migration. Finally, it concludes that lasting peace cannot be built until human security is guaranteed. It needs to be noted that terms like basic needs, good governance, and so on are contested issues. Hence, their precise importance remains unclear. What is common between UNDP and the Canadian approach to human security? Both reject the focus on state security with varying degrees of emphasis. While anointing human security as their central concern, both stress the needs to ensure the well-being of citizens, their personal freedom and safety from direct and indirect threats which can equally emanate from the state or society. On the other hand, there are divergences between the two approaches. The UNDP privileges the individual over the state, while the Canadian, while the Canadian approach gives importance to the state while according primacy to human security, The UNDP emphasizes the threat from indirect violence as from environmental factors. A distinction must be drawn between threats to human security that are amenable to state intervention and other that must be left to public and social action. No rigid distinction can be made here, but threats like the abuse of women, children that have been elevated into the human security agenda to lie more largely in the sphere of societal rather than state action. Recognizing these distinctions would permit the laying out of priorities and better utilization of the budgetary instrument to harness efforts by the state to support societal endeavor. Peace building strategies are very important because it addresses the causes of dispute, conflict, and the crisis. It is necessary to ensure that these problems do not arise in the first place, or if they do arise, they would not reoccur. In the agenda for peace, the Secretary General of the UN focused his attention on non-recurrence, what he described as post-conflict peace building. But peace building has strongly preventive character as well. If the foundations are properly laid by efforts, among other things, to create fair systems, rules, fair ways of distributing scarce resources, and meet basic human needs for survival and dignity, then the chances are that many potential problems, whether international or internal, will remain manageable. Dear learners, peace building is very much essential in the present world. Peace building within states in which both the international community and individual states themselves are mutually supportive roles to play should aim at achieving progress in reducing the gap between the rich and the poor, to extend basic human rights to all, to promote sustainable development, and to advance a just and fair society which does not discriminate on grounds of gender and race. Preventive peace building at this level also seeks to promote adherence by states to establish standards of good international citizenship. Good international government is the necessary foundation of good global governance. Dear learners, it is the month of September, and in October 24, we have world over the UNO Day. And this is the day for peace building, and it is very much essential for the present war-like situation, various parts of the world. At the national level, appropriate preventive peace building techniques include social and economic development, democratization, observance of fundamental human rights, the elimination of all forms of gender or racial discrimination, and respect for minorities. Many states spread disproportionate amounts of their scarce resource for military security, thus depriving their population of vital economic and social infrastructural needs, which would be in general far more effective in enhancing their national security and well-being. In all regions of the world, and this is just as true of developed as of developing countries, the conversion from defense industry and expenditure to civilian programs and the adoption of disarmament and arms control measures would, if appropriately managed, result in substantial economic benefits. Dear learners, in the post-Cold War era, there are number of threats to the peace and security of the world, such as terrorism, poverty, migration, population, ecological hazards, drugs, human trafficking, and disparities between the rich and poor. As I had said, the difference between the haves and the have-not. These issues were addressed at the Hague Peace Conference in 1991. Dear learners, please note it down in your notebook that 1991, the Hague Peace Conference emphasis has been laid on human security, that is, freedom from fear and freedom from want. Dear learners, please remember, terrorism is another major threat to the world peace. You see, our Honorable Prime Minister, we celebrated his birthday yesterday only by planting a tree, एक पेड़ माँ के नाम. One tree in the name of my mother. I must say, my dear learners, wherever our Honorable Prime Minister is going, be it England, be it Canada, be it New York, he is emphasizing that All countries should act against terrorism. You see, our immediate neighbor, Pakistan, it is because of our armed forces that we are now safe. So, my emphasis is that there should not be any terrorism or any terrorist activities. You see, the laboratory in Pakistan of terrorism, please note it down. Yeah, it is the POK, Pak occupied Kashmir. Many political scientists of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi University, Banaras Hindu University have highlighted that there should be end to terrorism. And rightly, our Honorable Prime Minister, my salutation to him for the Operation Sindhu. Please read and give some material while you write in your term and exam, because always bookish knowledge won't help. And it will add to your weight to your answer script. So please note it down. Terrorism, a threat to the world peace. Even the most powerful nuclear country in the world cannot provide an ounce of security against a terrorist group. When I talk of terrorism, the name of Osama bin Laden comes to my mind. Anyway, terrorist groups armed with a single nuclear weapon. You see what happened in Bangladesh? They burned down all the Hindu temples. The whole world is silent. Not a single country. They raised their voice. What happened there? Brutally killing the Hindus and telling them to be converted into Islam, burning down the ISKCON temple. You see, it has become a milestone in history. I remember the Bangabandhu. Bangladesh was created. Our army toiled for it. But you see, now it has become very terroristic in nature. In order to bring peace and security in the world, we must frame a new agenda for peace. Peace is more than just an absence of war. Dear learner, please note down. I am very happy you are listening. You note down that peace is more important and not merely the absence of the war. Don't think that if the war is stopped, peace will come. Peace is much more than it. Peace is the highest expression of human values. It is the highest expression of the human values, dear learners. You note it down. Peace is the highest expression of the human values because it alone can make it possible to attain other values. Only through peace we can attain other values. What we need today, dear learners, is to replace the old paradigm founded on entrenched ideological position with a new one that is open to reprisal of social, political, cultural, and ecological balance and values. Human lives, human beings are very important for the peace building process. Dear learners, the Gandhian vision of the human security, the birth of the territorial states in Europe encouraged the growth of the doctrine of state-centered security. With the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the bipolar order, the quest for few international system and the debate has come. Anyway, the United Nations organization is catering a lot for the world peace. The concept of security is firmly embedded in beliefs linking it to freedom from fear and anxiety. In fact, they identify synonymous to be on anxiety, certainty, and protection. Just for example, the traditional security and the Gandhian vision of human security. In the traditional security, the policies are designed to promote demands ascribed to the state. Other interests are subordinated to those of the state. Traditional security protects the state's boundaries, people, institutions, and values. Traditional security seeks to defend states from external aggression. State security is about a state's ability to deter or defeat an attack. It makes use of deterrence strategies to maintain the integrity of the state and protect the territory from external threats. On the other hand, the Gandhian vision of the human security. Human security is people centered. Its focus shifts to protecting the individual. It must protect the individual. The important dimensions are to entail the well being of individuals and respond to ordinary people's need in dealing with sources of threats. Man should be the supreme consideration. In addition to protecting the state from external aggression, human security would expand the scope of protection to include a broader range of threats, including environmental pollution, infectious diseases, and economic deprivation. The realization of the human security involves not only the government, but the broader participation of different actors, regional and international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the local communities. Traditional security relies upon building of national power and military defense. The common form it takes are armament races, strategic boundaries. On the other hand, on the other hand, human security not only, dear learners, protects but also empowers people and societies as a means of security. People contribute by identifying and implementing solutions to insecurity. Nationalism is also very much essential. The tenets of the Gandhian foreign policy, which believed that the destiny of India lay not in militarization, but in the realization of the noble mission of friendship and peace. You see, Gandhi is telling it is a noble mission for peace and friendship. The Gandhism teaches the conception of transcendence of narrow, exclusive, aggressive, and chauvinistic nationalism and affirms the fundamental proposition that one's good consists in the good of mankind. He always was thinking of humanity and gave high importance on the human values. I must say, dear learners, the Gandhian vision of human security is a very, very noble concept in the present war afflicted world. We do not know what will happen if more and more nations join the warring faction. Can you think there will be world peace? Only the Gandhism and the Gandhian values will sustain the world, which I feel. The protection of individuals' welfare is more important. The protection of the individual's welfare is more important than the state. If the security of individuals is threatened internally by the state or externally by other states, state authority can be overridden. Many visionary world leaders, like our present Prime Minister, Honorable Sri Narendra Modi ji, has highlighted on interaction among different warring countries. Let there be table talks, round table conference. Let them speak and open their mind. Then I'm sure the conflict will be resolved. This is what our Honorable Prime Minister feels in resolving the conflict. The root cause of humanitarian crisis, the root cause of humanitarian crisis, economic, political, or social instability. You see what happened in Nepal? There is instability, random killing. the ex-chief justice has to become the interim head of the government. You see, because peace has to be restored. If there is some difference between the warring faction, let there be a roundtable conference. Only percolating or feeling on the road, destroying the Supreme Court, burning the administrative materials won't solve any purpose. Anyway, prevention is the best solution. A collective understanding of the deeper social issues, along with a desire to work together, is necessary to prevent humanitarian crisis, thereby preventing a widespread absence of human security within a population. To sum up for today, dear learners, the application of human security is highly relevant, very, very important, highly relevant within the area of humanitarian intervention, as it focuses on addressing the deep roots and multifactorial problems inherent in humanitarian crisis and offers more long-term resolution. In general, the term humanitarian intervention generally applies when a state uses force against another state in order to alleviate suffering in the latter state. Human security argues that this intervention should be done only as a last resort when there is ethnic cleansing and genocide. In such cases, the international community has the responsibility to protect the endangered community when the state has failed. I wish there should be peacekeeping force to maintain the law and order, and they should work in tune with the government law and order machinery. Under the traditional security, dear learners, under the traditional security, humanitarian intervention is contentious. The traditional security paradigm places emphasis on the notion of states. Hence, the principles of state sovereignty and non-intervention that are paramount in the traditional security paradigm make it difficult to justify the intervention of other states in international disputes. Through the development of clear principles based on the human security concept, there has been a step forward in the development of clear rules of humanitarian intervention and the obligation of states that intervene in the international disputes of states. Human security also, dear learners, focuses on the serious neglect of gender concerns under the traditional security model. Dear learners, The traditional security focuses on external military threats. The state has meant that the majority of threats women face has been overlooked. By focusing on the individual, dear learners, by focusing on the individual, the human security model aims at addressing the security concerns of both women and men equally. Women are often the worst victims of violence and conflict. They form the majority of civilian deaths. Yes, as per the UNO report, the women form the majority of the civilian deaths, the majority of refugees, and are often the victim of cruel and degrading practices such as rape. What happened in Afghanistan? Rape and murder in broad daylight. The women are vulnerable. The World UNO report. Women's security is also threatened by unequal access to resources. Turdo, services and opportunities. Human security seeks to empower women through education, participation, and access as gender equality is seen as a necessary precondition for peace, security, and a prosperous society. This is precisely what Gandhiji wanted and has done. Dear learners, the human security has a deep relationship with the human rights tradition. The idea of natural law and natural rights. The development of human security model can be seen to have drawn upon ideas and concepts fundamental to the human rights traditions. Both approaches use the individual as the main referred and both argue and a wide range of issues. I must say that our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was a great advocate of human rights. I must say he championed the cause of human rights in the whole world. The whole of Indian freedom struggle waged under the leadership was the struggle for human rights and human security. Dear learners, Gandhiji was a champion of human rights. I must say that the Indian National Congress established in 1885 by A.O. Hume, with only 72 delegates, went on increasing. Gradually, the numbers increased. Members also joined. And I was telling about Gandhiji. If you divide the whole freedom movement from the formation of the Indian National Congress 1885 till the attainment of the freedom in 1947, we can divide this into three phases. The first phase, 1885 till 1907, the famous Surat split. Second phase, from 1907 to 1919, till the advent of Gandhiji to the freedom movement, from 1919 to 1947, the third phase is totally known as the period of the Gandhian era. So, dear learners, just to summarize and give some examples that with some variables, human development and human security, the values, well-being in human development, in human security, stability, sustainability of the development gains, variable orientation moves forward, progressive, together we rise. Human security looks at who was left behind at the individual level. Divided we fall. Unity is strength. Variable, time frame. Human development, long term. Human security combines short-term measures to deal with risk with long-term prevention efforts. Policy goals, variable. Human development, empowerment, sustainability, equity, and productivity. Human security, protection and promotion of human survival, freedom from fear, daily life, freedom from want, and abundance. General objective, variable. Growth with equity, expanding the choices and opportunity of people to lead lives they value. And in the domain of human security, Buddham saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Human security, dear learners, is essential and very much relevant for the humanitarian intervention, as it focuses on addressing the deep-rooted and multifactorial problems inherent in the humanitarian crisis and offers more long-term resolution. The humanitarian intervention generally applies when a state uses force against another state in order to alleviate suffering in the latter state. Thank you. Thank you very much. We meet again tomorrow.